with you, Mrs. Ugaz.
Chairman Payne, Ranking Member Schmidt, distinguished members of the House Committee of Foreign Affairs, Ambassador Ali, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to thank you for your invitation to brief on the important issue of access to clean water and adequate sanitation as addressed by the UNDP Human Development Report of 2006, beyond the scarcity, power, poverty, and the global water crisis. I welcome this opportunity to share the findings of this report with you. The Human Development Report 2006 underscores the human development dimension of the lack of access to clean water and adequate sanitation faced by the world poor. Ladies and gentlemen, as we speak at the moment, 50% of the population in developing countries suffer from related illnesses that correspond to the lack of water and sanitation. As Congressman said before, at the end of today, 5,000 children will die because of diarrhea, which is one of the illnesses that is associated also to the lack of water and sanitation. There is indeed a global crisis, and actually the Human Development Report 2006 is also a call for action. We do verify in this report that this is a silent crisis. That is a crisis that basically hits the poor around the world, those who don't have voice, who are basically underrepresented in politics in their own countries, and therefore that are completely unable to stand up for themselves and claim something that can be considered a human right. I have prepared some PowerPoint slides, and I don't know if they could be maybe projected. As we were saying before, 1.1 billion people lack access to water and sanitation, and 2.6 billion people lack access to sanitation as well. Inequality is a crucial part of the story. I think beyond these big aggregates, which are actually something that are already terrifying, what we try to get into in the report is basically to try to see how these conditions of access are shaped within the countries itself. And what we can actually say is basically that this crisis is pretty much shaped by a problem of inequality, and income inequality in particular. As we said before, more than 2/3 of people who lack access to water are basically poor. So by definition, people living below $2 a day, which is the standard poverty line in the international level. More than half of people who lack access to sanitation are also below this poverty line. Therefore, this is a strong correlation between the lack of income and the lack of access to water and sanitation. So we say this is definitely a problem of the poor. Nevertheless, some of the solutions that I'm going to be mentioning at the end of my presentation do also correspond to amounts of investment that are not that big, and that fortunately so, because we think definitely in the Human Development Report that this is a crisis that we can solve and is within our reach. If we can change maybe the second slide, please.
Change it to the second slide.
Not working. We can go a bit further maybe. Okay, one more. One more. Okay, if you can just stay like this for a little while. I just wanted.
Could you dim the lights a little bit? Maybe that might help.
Mm-hmm. So I just would like to call your attention to the fact that in this graphic, it doesn't appear very clearly in the screen. Basically, what we were trying to depict is the inequality in access to water by income quintiles of the populations in several developing countries, including some sub-Saharan African countries like Benin and Mali. So basically, what you can see in the graphic is that in the top part of the graphic, you always have two bars. The upper bar is basically the one that corresponds to the rate of connection of the population, which is the richest in society, so the 20% richest in the country. The bottom one is the one that corresponds to the poorest in society. What you have in all these overwhelmingly blue lines, which are always at the top, mean that basically the richest segments of societies in all these developing countries are usually connected 100% to sources of water that we consider improved water, which are basically safe water by private taps, by protected wells. So these are people that basically can afford having access to water at home. If you look at the second line, what you get is like the poor people go about trying to get water from many different sources. And I think this is a very interesting part of the story, because then you have the population, the poorest population in these countries, which are usually exposed to have water from contaminated sources. Another one, please. Okay, here again, I mean, it's not very clear, but what we try also to say is that what is really striking is that within developing countries, there is a huge inequality in terms of the quantity of water that people consume. And basically, the richest people in society in general are the ones who consume 300 liters per day, while the poor people in the same country consume only 5 liters per day, which is the bare minimum to satisfy human necessities. So this is the reason why in the report we say it's not really helpful to focus about scarcity, because scarcity appears to be something that is not man-made and is something that is beyond our control. It cannot be a scarcity in places where you have people consuming 300 liters and at the same time people consuming only 5. So it is a basic problem of distribution. The other thing, the next please, the other thing I would like to call your attention about is that it's usually the poorest who pay the more for accessing water. Even for the little 5 liters of water per day that people go about buying, these people pay sometimes up to 16 times more than when richer people in society who are connected to the water utility are paying in their water bills, which is something also that reveals that is a big problem, a structural problem in the way